Brazil's presidential candidates faced each other on Sunday in their first debate ahead of the October 2nd elections. To go deeper on the matter, we have with us here in From the South, international affairs analyst and Latin American Caribbean Studies professor Danny Shaw. Hello, Danny.
Good evening.
Well, Danny, your first impression after Sunday's presidential debate. What are the headlines of this first debate that we witnessed yesterday?
One could feel the deep polarization of Brazil in the debate. Lula certainly stood up for the 99% of Brazil, for the everyday workers. A key moment was when several of the ruling class right-wing candidates tried to attack the PT and Lula said, "You may not feel the changes, but certainly your gardener and your driver and your bodyguard and your domestic help or your maids certainly feel all of the changes that my government from 2003 to 2012 and after Dilma Rousseff, the changes that we ushered in, certainly the everyday workers of Brazil feel that." So Lula's voice was loud and clear, denouncing the corruption, the white supremacy, and the pseudo-fascism of Jair Bolsonaro, who's been in power now for 4 long years, which has deeply affected the Brazilian people. Of course, the most marginalized sectors of the country have been the most affected.
Danny, different leftist movements are gaining strength in the region. We saw recently a leftist government elected in Colombia for the first time. Bolsonaro is basically basing his campaign against Lula, saying the former president will return Brazil to the left. Statistics show that Lula's government works in favor of Brazilians. Is this a show of Bolsonaro's fear that Brazil joins this growing force if Lula is elected?
Bolsonaro ended with a predictable anti-communist and anti-socialist rant. He called out Venezuela. He called out Nicaragua. He called out Alberto Fernandez, and he called out other leftists and anti-imperialists in the region, which is ironic considering that all of these countries surround Brazil, and Lula has promised to rejoin the South American family, the Bolivarian family, and to stand with these anti-imperialist bulwarks against Washington, against the idea that this massive country of 210 million, more than 1/3 of all of South America, is somehow a neo-colony of Washington. Lula's talked about the SUR currency that could unite the South against the dictates of the U.S. government. So certainly there's a great buzz here in Brazil and across the region. I think it's not just Brazilians, but all South Americans, all oppressed people who are anxiously awaiting October 2nd to see a definitive victory for the PT and for the working and humble people of the world.
Danny, can you hear us?
Now I can.
Danny, can you hear us?
Yes, I can now.
Brazil's electoral campaign enters its third week, Danny. We have so far seen Bolsonaro's allies spreading misinformation on social media. Bolsonaro himself is discrediting the electronic electoral system that he used to win several elections in the past, most recently to win the presidency in 2018. What can we expect to see in the coming days prior to Election Day?
Similar to Donald Trump, this is a page of Trump's playbook. Bolsonaro is preemptively questioning the integrity of these elections. It's funny when you think of this military man, this individual who comes from the ruling caste of Rio de Janeiro, and who has so many armed individuals, both within the state and private citizens, who defend him. And he constantly describes himself as this great victim of the mass media. he studied Donald Trump and Donald Trump's insider-outsider tactics very well. So he's trying to call into question these elections so that he can potentially stage or wage a coup. Doesn't seem like at this point, with the astounding support that Lula has, Lula's way up in the polls, some 13 or 14 points ahead of Bolsonaro, according to Data Folia. Doesn't seem like Bolsonaro would have the necessary support from the military brass, other sectors of the Brazilian ruling class to get away with this coup attempt. So Bolsonaro right now is appearing very weak. He's at war with Globo and the other major TV networks, again, similar to Trump. So it's only a question of whether Lula will win the 50% he needs on October 2nd, or if this will go to a runoff on October 30th.
Of course, we will provide special coverage here at teleSUR on Brazil's paramount October 2nd elections. As always, Danny, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome.